Here we go. Hey Melissa, how are you? Hope you're having a good week so far on the first day. I've realized that I can't make any weird faces because that's where it always seems to freeze. And then the video gets passed around and I have a really strange face. So, I'm not going to look away. I'm not going to do weird stuff. Yay. Hey guys. How are y'all doing? So, how's everyone's week so far? Ah, nice. You had to practice being a big girl today. I had opportunities this last week twice with the whole customer service and keeping the right attitude. One time I failed miserably, and one time I think I got it halfway right. It's tough. Hopefully your big girl practice wasn't a horrible experience, but if you had to practice being a big girl, it probably wasn't amazing. How'd you do? Anybody else get to use their big girl skills or think about them and then you didn't use them this week? It's tough sometimes, for sure. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hey, Wendy. How are you? This week is Chapter 4, and it's Confidence for Big Girl Singles. And it says embracing the single life in any season. And even if you are not single, this still has some really good information. There was stuff in it that kind of challenged me and made me think about things that I need to work on and be aware of, I guess. So, let's see. I like how she starts off by saying that singleness provides a woman with options. And I'd never really thought of it that way, but it's definitely, you have more options or different options, at least, when you're single. And when I kind of wrap this whole chapter up with a challenge, it kind of involves the fact that you have options when you're single. So, let's see. She was talking about some of her big girl friends that were single, and she said that the thing about them is that they love life, the ones that are big girls, not little girls. She said that they love life and live it to the max. They find ways to be connected with others, and they spend very little time thinking about whether or not they have a significant other. It's just not the focus of their life. And I like that, and I kind of want to preface this whole chapter by pointing out we're not talking about whether or not you're married. And yes, that's what single versus not single is. But the focus is not whether or not you're married. The focus is how can I grow and be what I need to be during this season of my life. It says that they did not let their connection or lack thereof define them. She said, I believe a core issue for human females is knowing that we have a reason to live and therefore we are valuable. Big girls find that reason. And it's in any season, any situation of your life, you're valuable and you just have to find out whatever your reason is, regardless of whether you're single, you're married. I guess those are the two options. But anyway, it says, let's see, they recognize their value and go for the life that God has promised. Others perpetually struggle, always looking for someone or something that is going to make them feel important. And that's the difference, is we need to find who we are in God, and that's what makes us important, and that's what makes us valuable. It's not that we always need to look for something or someone else to do that for us. And if you can get a hold of that, that's a huge key for tonight. It says, if a big girl is to emerge into this woman that God created her to be, she will first have to discover and believe that she is valuable and has a purpose. So I guess that's our goal tonight, is to at least challenge you to know that you are valuable, you have a purpose, regardless of your relationship status. You were created to be you, and God's going to use you. He knew that you would be in the situation you're in right now, whatever your status is, and He wants to be able to use that. So here are some big girl truths that will point you toward purposeful living. Stephanie said it's not loading. Hopefully I guess someone else let me know if you're having trouble viewing this right now. I'm not sure what I would do to change it, but you might be, because it looks like the count's down from who's on there. So I don't know. Oh, you know what? I may be on Wi-Fi. Hold a little bit. I think it might have been me. I had Wi-Fi on because our DirecTV is not working, so we were watching Netflix using my phone and using the Wi-Fi. And our Wi-Fi is not great. You can see we live in the middle of the woods, and Wi-Fi is not amazing. So anyway, maybe it will stop now that I switched off of Wi-Fi and I'm just on my cell. Anyway, okay, so back to the book. Several big girl truths that will point you toward purposeful living. And I like all of these, and I want you to think about these as I read them. I do not need a significant other to be significant. There's no sound now. I don't think I have my sound turned off. If someone else doesn't have sound, let me know. We may just have to start this whole thing over. I don't know. Okay, Melissa hears me. So it may be the connections where you guys are. I'm not sure. I don't think there's anything else that I can do on mine. If you think of something that I can do, because I don't know what I'm doing, feel free to send me a little message across the screen. Okay, so we're going to back up. Several big girl truths that will point you toward purposeful living. And again, these are big girl truths. They're not single big girl truths. They're just big girl truths. I do not need a significant other to be significant. That's whether you're in a relationship or not. I can have significant relationships with significant people. I enjoy my own company, even though I also enjoy the company of others. I am responsible for my own happiness. That's a big one right there. I'm responsible for my own happiness. And those are thoughts that can go through if someone is struggling with being single, or if they're feeling alone even in a relationship that they're in. They need to get a hold of, I'm responsible for my own happiness. You can't control other people. You can't change other people. You can decide that you're going to be happy. You're going to be strong in spite of what you're going through. So the next one. Sometimes I have to work harder to make holidays and weekends special, but I do, and that's okay. I am not the only one who is single. And that's kind of any situation that you're going through. It's real easy when things aren't going the way that you feel that they should. It's real easy to feel like you're isolated and feel like you're the only person going through it. You're rarely the only person going through it. And so if you realize you're not alone, that sometimes just helps you refocus, if nothing else. I can enjoy being free to make choices for myself. I can be wise and seek counsel if I'm in doubt about a decision that I must make. And that one's pretty important. A lot of times if you're confused, it's okay to reach out and ask for help. The next one is I understand that blood is not required for a family kind of relationship with other people who are important to me. I love this one. There are quite a few people in my life that we might as well be family. People older than I am, people my age, people younger than I am. It's just the fact that we have strong relationships. And so even if you don't have a lot of, and maybe I'm an only child. And so relationships that I have are very important to me because they're relationships that I choose to have, as opposed to, someone that I was born into a family that, we're always together. And so that's why we have a relationship. So just realize that just because you're not surrounded by a lot of people, maybe in your family sometimes, or maybe your family's not supportive, or you're just on different tracks or whatever, doesn't mean that you have to be alone. Family is basically who you have strong relationships with. The next one, this one's important. It says, I avoid codependent entanglements that make me feel trapped or where I might trap another person. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into the whole codependent thing as we go through this tonight. And then the last one is, I believe in freedom. So hopefully those kind of make sense to you. You know, if you think through them, those are big girl thoughts. Those are big girl statements that we need to be able to get a hold of. Let's see. The principal truth that every big girl has to grab a hold of, whether single, married, divorced, or widowed, is this. You are valuable just because you are you. God has plans for you just because you are you. You came into the world alone, you will leave the world alone, and you will give an account alone. The relationships that you develop along your life's journey may be highly significant and part of God's plan, but they don't define you. You are precious by yourself, and God is crazy about you. And that's pretty much wraps up the whole description, I guess, of a big girl, is you realize that you are you because God wanted you and because God wanted you to be you. And the relationships are a benefit. The things that we go through, the people that we deal with, a lot of times those are just benefits, but the thing is, you have to be confident in you, and then those relationships are going to be stronger, and you'll be able to enjoy those even more. So it says, life is to be lived every day as part of your journey. Don't miss what God has for you. And all of this, it gets back to what we talked about last week about, you know, it starts with our thought process. It starts with the words that we're speaking, you know, about our life and about our situations. And so don't miss what God has for you. Don't get distracted by the fact that what you think you have or the situation you're in or just you in general, if you feel that you're not enough, don't let that distract you. All that is a trick of the enemy to try to keep you from doing what God created you to do. And if you can recognize that, that alone should make you feel special, because just knowing that God did create you to do something, there's a purpose for you or you would not be here. So some of the pitfalls that she points out for singles. And, you know, watch for them and remember that God has a bigger plan than all the earthly petty stuff that seems to cloud your eyes and diminish our vision. So, first one, like I said, codependency in friendships. Codependency is the kind of relationship where one person negatively controls the emotions and behaviors of another person and vice versa. You know, you both could be codependent. You both could be relying on each other so much that you lose who you are, or you start trying to control that other person. And a lot of times it's because you're not comfortable with who you are. Jealousy, control, and emotional dependency are manifestations of a little girl who would be much happier if she learned how to live as a big girl. It says usually codependent singles are consumed with one relationship at a time, and when each one wears thin, they move on to the next. A little girl is very afraid that she will never have anyone to love her for being herself. And so what they do is when they get in relationships, they're so afraid of losing those relationships that a lot of times they sabotage those relationships. And if the person that they're trying to latch on to is strong enough to realize what's going on, that person's going to pull away, or that person's going to put up those healthy boundaries. And so the whole codependency thing, if you are in a relationship where you feel like someone is, you know, like latching onto you or suffocating you or controlling you, that's not a healthy relationship. And it's not to say that, oh, you know, get away from that person, leave them alone. It's just you may have to address that and set some boundaries. If you catch yourself feeling the need to, you know, oh, they didn't answer their phone. What are they doing? Where are they? Are they hanging out with someone else? You know, you may be the person that's codependent. You may be the person that's starting this relationship. If you are, let's just back it up and start over. Let's just start to release some of that stuff. And it describes basically a person that's codependent is so frightfully insecure that she would rather take her friends as emotional hostages instead of just letting it be a friendship and just letting happen what's going to happen. And it all boils down to a fear of being abandoned and a fear of being alone. And the thing is, if we get to the point that we realize that we're not alone because we have God on our side, and God, He wants us to have relationships, but He wants to be the focus of them. And if we switch it to that person is the focus or we're the focus, something's going to be messed up. He wants us to have healthy relationships. And that's when we get to the chapter on friendships, we're going to definitely dig pretty far into that. And she describes a situation where there are two ladies that, were older, later stages in life. They were both single. They decided, it would be pretty smart for us just to share expenses, to move in. We're great friends. Let's just hang out more anyway. But it got to the point that, one of them was very codependent on the other and started trying to control and basically she needed to know where the other person was all the time, what they were doing. And when the second person, kind of tried to go ahead and live life as normal, the first one was like, oh, if she'd been a better friend, she would have paid more attention. She would have, spent more time with me. She would have known what was upsetting me, all that kind of stuff. And so, it says, but on the other hand, okay, I'm getting texts about people saying they can't get this to work. I'm not real sure what to do. This is a really good chapter tonight, too. Is there anyone else that's having trouble? Let's see. Looks like the number's down compared to who's been joining. So I don't know. I don't know if I should start over. I don't know. You know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to log this off and then go back on and maybe start from the beginning. Well, Melissa said it's working for her. So maybe once I post it, it'll be out there. Okay, I'm going to keep going. If we find out when it's done that it didn't work, we'll just get back on and do it again. So that's the plan. Okay, so some signs of codependency relationships and the fact that you could be getting into one is telling too much too soon. If you're in a, you just meet someone, or even if you've known the person, but you kind of just start hanging out and they start telling you too much too soon, or you find yourself opening up, and I'm not saying to put up guards. I'm not saying, put up walls, put your guard up. I'm just saying be careful about who you tell information to, because sometimes that person can't handle your information and they, I don't want you to be skeptical, but there are certain things that you don't have to set yourself up for. Let a relationship grow, and then you can get to the point that you trust that person, and if you still need to talk about something, then talk about it. The next sign is the absence of healthy boundaries regarding personal identity and possessions. The next one is proclaiming to be too close too soon. And that's, the friend that, once you start being friends, they're immediately telling people, oh, this is my good friend, so-and-so, we've been hanging out together. And they want to make sure that everybody knows that you're friends really fast. Or even when you're far into a relationship, if you think about it, your friends that are healthy, they don't feel the need to tell everyone else that you're friends. It doesn't matter, because they're in the friendship to be with you, not to impress other people or to make it sound like, oh, I have a whole bunch of friends. So the next one is the expectation that the other person will meet emotional needs, and then anger when it doesn't happen. So if, you have a friend that gets upset with you because you didn't realize they were upset, or, you didn't pick up on their clues that were really kind of a game in the first place, that's a sign of an unhealthy relationship. And then also, if you realize that there's more pain than pleasure in the friendship. And again, I'm not saying abandon these people. I'm just saying address the unhealthy pieces. And if it's something that can be saved, or something that, maybe they don't realize they're doing it, or maybe they don't want to be like that, and you just saying, hey, what's going on? This seems kind of odd to me. Maybe that will give you the opportunity to open a door to help them. But if it's, if it pushes them away, or if they get real defensive or whatever, they may not be ready to change anyway. And it's, back to the whole thing of you have to be confident in who God created you to be. You don't need that person to complete you. You don't need that person to validate you. And as long as you are going to them in love, you're going to them in a healthy manner, what they do is their decision from that point. So it says awareness is one of the marks of a big girl. So for the single big girl who is caught in an uncomfortable relationship where one or more of these behaviors is present, her antenna should be up. It's time to do something. So just be aware of these things, because even if you're not the person, the fact that you're single may open you up for someone to latch onto you. This could be a guy too. It's not just, a female friend. There could be unhealthy codependency relationships just because people think that you're easier and you have more time or whatever. So just, just be aware. And again, check yourself, make sure you're not this person. But the big girl takes responsibility for her own actions and then does what is healthy, even if no one else understands. And that's the thing about, if you need to address it, but make sure that you're staying healthy. So codependency in general, it says taking up the offense of another, accusations and shaming. These are just some of the characteristics that can come out. Bickering, the silent treatment. If a friend just stops talking to you, first of all, is she a friend? And second of all, how old is she if she's just going to stop talking to you? And then the whole group shunning thing. That's just, if she feels the need to get everyone against you, even though she proclaims that you are her best friend or whatever, that's a codependency cue. I had an issue a long time ago, early family, early in the ministry, and it's someone that I built a friendship with. She was single, I was not, had 2 kids, like I said, young family, not in the ministry for very long, and we were really close. Again, it's one of those, we kind of clicked really quick, and she attached very quickly, and I didn't think anything of it. I need friends, I wanted friends, so I was there for her. But then I realized, like, if she called and I couldn't talk, back in the days when we actually talked instead of texting, if she called and I couldn't talk because, I was doing stuff with my family, taking care of stuff around the house, whatever, I realized that she would get kind of pouty and she would get kind of angry. Or if she would call and I would talk, but I wouldn't stay on the phone for like an hour or whatever, she would, near the end of the conversation, when she would feel that I was starting to, back off and maybe end the conversation, then she started, like, there was always something more urgent, or, I really need to talk about this or whatever. And it took me a while to realize, but then I don't remember, I think maybe it's something that I read or whatever, kind of triggered and clicked for me. And so at that point, I had to kind of start purposely not answering the phone every time and just kind of put that a little bit of distance to see how she could handle that. And eventually it ended up that she did back off, and she did, she moved on, basically. How I was saying earlier that a codependent person has one friend at a time, and then when that goes south, it doesn't take them long to move on to someone else. And that's what she did. And I still love her. I still would be there for her. If, we saw each other, we would still be friendly. But I think the healthiest thing at that point, because what she was wanting was that type of a relationship, the healthiest thing for me and my family was to back off. So it is okay to do that. It's hard to do that, and you feel kind of horrible doing that because you feel like you're pushing someone away. But the person doesn't really need you if they're not willing to evaluate and change and make things healthy. So don't feel like you have to stay in an unhealthy relationship. So, and then the next section for singles is allowing too much too soon and too long in dating. So here are some of the warning signs that, or things that thought processes that you need to try to stay away from. One is thinking that you automatically understand the intentions of the opposite sex. Don't assume anything when it comes to the intentions of the person that you're in a relationship with. It says a big girl single knows to go with her head and not her heart until time has proven what the emotions are all about. It's easy to misinterpret when you want the outcome to be a certain way. And, that's true, because when you meet someone and you enjoy their company or whatever, you want it to work out. You want it to be something that's not going to end. And so if you still don't keep your eyes open, it's real easy to misinterpret. And maybe you think because you're interested in them or this seems like the perfect person, your intentions are different than theirs. And so you can't just assume that they have the same heart that you do and that they have the same goals and the same plan that you do. So, number 2 is believing that a bad relationship is better than no relationship. And that one is horrible and it's sad, and I don't want you to fall into that trap at all. Like I said, you be you and let God take care of the rest of that. Be happy with you. Let God work on you and create you into the person that He wants you to be, and then you're going to be ready. And you're going to, if you're really getting close to God, most likely you're going to realize, you're going to be able to recognize the good relationships and the bad relationships. It says, being content with less than devoted attention and appreciation in a committed relationship is unacceptable to a big girl single who knows who she is. And hanging on too long just delays the inevitable and blocks your ability to move on. Holding on, waiting for a broken relationship to repair itself is an exercise in futility. And I am going to tell you, and those of you that are on here that have been through some of this stuff, a lot of times I know that I've seen people go through relationships and they're like, oh, but it's okay, and when we get married, I know it'll be different. And when we get married, he's going to change, and he's going to settle down, and he's going to be nicer to me. And when I'm his wife instead of his girlfriend, he's going to treat me differently. I'm going to tell you right now, the dating is when they are trying to pursue you and try to convince you that they're the best, and that's when they have their best foot forward. And yes, a lot of times it will stay through marriage. It's either going to stay or it's going to get worse. It rarely gets better. The person that you date is the person that you're going to marry. So don't trick yourself into thinking, oh, things will change. Things will change when we get engaged. Oh, things will change when we get married. Things will change when we have kids. The person is the person, and they don't change unless they want to change. So if you're not happy with who they are while you're dating, you need to go ahead and cut it off. Be strong enough to realize that God has something better for you. That person could be amazing, but that person's not yours. That person is not for you if they're not taking care of you and keeping God first in your relationship. And that's not to say that, everything's always going to be, if it's not always perfect, drop them. I'm not saying that either. You're going to have to work through issues. You're going to have to work through the normal relationship stuff. But if it's more, like I said earlier, if it's more pain than it is pleasure as a relationship, you might need to reevaluate if this is really what you want for the rest of your life. Because like I said, it's either going to stay the same or it's going to get worse as far as that goes, unless that person wants to change. And you can't will them to change. So anyway, so the third thing is turning a blind eye to the red flags that pop up. And this is just in general. If you're close to God, God gives you the Holy Spirit for a reason. He gives you that. It's just that check in your gut. It's that if something doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. And that doesn't mean if something's hard, it's not right, because a lot of times the hard things are the best things. If you don't have that peace and you can't get settled on the inside, at the same time that you're praying and you're asking God to guide and direct you, then something's not right, and you need to not force it. You need to back up. It may be something that's going to work out for you, but until you get that peace, you don't need to move forward with it. It says if there are warning signs, it's often easier to deny them than to deal with them, because having a relationship is more comfortable than being alone. And that's not true. It may seem that way at the time, but it's not true. And if something's always a fight, that's not what God wants for you. God wants you to have peace. We're supposed to pursue peace. And there's a reason for that, because He knows that that's more healthy for us. It's just better for us in general. So, the fourth sign is remaining naive about physical temptations. It says, little girl singles are unaware of dangerous physical settings. Little girl singles don't sense that they could be in a difficult situation until they're in it. And it would never occur to them to back out of it once they're in it. That's why you have to be strong and confident. You have to decide up front what's okay for you. And if you go into a relationship or into a situation, a setting, or whatever, if you don't already know what your boundaries are and what you're willing to do and what you're willing to not do, that's not the time to decide it, because you're going to decide based on emotions as opposed to based on your convictions and based on whatever your morals are. So it's very important that you go ahead of time and decide, okay, this is what's right for me. And this is in any situation. It's not just in a dating situation. Just situations in life. If you know that you're going to be faced with something where you're going to have to make a decision about right and wrong, you need to know ahead of time what is right and wrong for you. And if you have that decision and you decide ahead of time, I'm going to stand for this, you're going to have a better chance of standing for it than if you just go into it thinking, oh, I'll figure it out when I get there. That's not healthy. That's not smart. It says big girl singles. Well, what I just said, should decide ahead of time exactly how far they will go and what they will do and who they will do it with. God's standard is no sex outside of marriage. A big girl recognizes that his rules are the best, even if her emotions don't agree with that. Given good thought processes ahead of time, a big girl will keep herself pure. And that's the thing. You can be in a situation and you convince yourself, well, we love each other, or well, we're going to get married anyway, or whatever. But the thing is, you don't realize until after it's over what you've given up. And once you give that up, you have scars to deal with. And yes, God can heal you. Yes, God can forgive you for, any decision that you make. But those scars are still there. There are still consequences. And people don't tell you about that part. And so you have to decide ahead of time what you're willing to live with and what you're willing to take a chance on. Let's see. Yeah, I'm basically rewording, I guess because I've already read this, I'm rewording what she said. So, number 5. And this is kind of a big one. And then there are 2 more, and then we'll move on to the next little section of this. We're getting close. Number 5 is thinking that Christian automatically means compatible. No. First of all, just because someone says they're a Christian doesn't mean that they practice the life of a Christian. And if it's important to you to have someone that loves God, you need to watch them and make sure that they really do love God. Give it some time. Don't rush into something. It says behavior over time is a good predictor of future behavior. Take time to get to know the man that you believe is so wonderful. If he is God's man today, he will be God's man tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, and the next day. Don't rush into anything. And that's the thing. Don't feel pressure of, I'm in this relationship, and we're going to get married anyway. I just know that I love him. Still take that time, because a lot of times emotion can cloud what reality is, and you want to give it enough time that you kind of come down off of that emotion and you start looking through eyes of, okay, this is lifetime. Is this really what God has for me? Is this really what I want? So, number 6, evaluating men with a list of expectations that they can't possibly meet. So that's the other thing. There's the person that's willing to fall for anything, and then there's also the person that they don't want to be alone, but they set expectations so high that you kind of wonder if maybe they do want to be alone, because nothing's ever good enough. And it says in here to look at the couples that have marriages that you admire. And it says, what do they have that I would like to have? What have they learned, and how do they live in the ways that appeal to me? And the thing is, you can talk to them and ask them. One thing you're going to find out is you are seeing the best parts. And so if you look at couples that you think, they're amazing, they're so in love all the time, then you're only looking at the best parts of them. If you talk to them, you're going to find out they have struggles. They have things that they have to work out. They have to figure out how to communicate healthy. They have to figure out how to be upset with each other without being ugly to each other. Because you're 2 different people, things are, you're going to have conflict at some point. So, and I heard a saying yesterday in service, and it said, let's see, I want to get it right. I wrote it down and then I left it laying in the seat. But basically, don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's, basically their best foot forward. And I totally botched that whole quote. But basically it's saying don't compare everything that you know about you to only what you can see about other people. For the most part, people don't put their garbage out. They don't put, especially Facebook. Facebook is so bad. And I kind of wonder a lot of times the people that go overboard about, my husband's so hot, my husband is perfect, blah, blah, blah. You kind of wonder if they're trying to convince themselves of that. And it may not be. They may absolutely have the perfect marriage. But a lot of times, just from going through counseling with people and just doing this over the years, I've realized people that overcompensate, a lot of times it's because they're having problems convincing themselves, or they're hoping that other people can't really see who they are. We talked about challenging you to be real. Be real with that stuff too. Don't go on Facebook and put on a big front, because people usually, like I said the first week, if you're not real, people know you're not real. They can see through it. And it just is how it is. Tommy and I have an amazing relationship, and sometimes we have a horrible relationship. It's just life. You decide that you're in it, you buckle down and you work through it, and you do the best you can to take care of each other. There are times that, and the reason I'm saying this, we've had people say, if we had a marriage like you do, yeah, for the most part, our marriage is amazing, but it took a lot of work to get there. And we've been through some horrible, horrible things. We've been ugly to each other. We've, not wanted to look at each other. We've not wanted to talk to each other. But we love each other, and we worked through it, and that made it even better. And some of the things we've been through, we came out so much stronger on the other side. You're not going to get between us at this point. And again, that doesn't mean that we still fight. We still argue. We still get irritated with each other. We get on each other's nerves. And then we laugh, and we love each other, and we enjoy being together, and we just have fun. And you just have to decide that you're going to gut it out and you're going to do what's best. And when I say gut it out, I don't want you just to get through it. I want you to put your effort in and make it work. And it just takes effort. So again, just because someone looks amazing doesn't mean it's all amazing. And a lot of times the ones that are amazing have gone through some crap to get there. So anyway, keep that in mind. I just don't want you to have unrealistic expectations. I want you to have high expectations because you deserve the best. But realize what the best means. It doesn't mean perfect. It means the best fit for you. So, and then the last point on this situation about, guarding yourself as a single is it's real easy to think that alone means lonely. And that's not the case. Big girl singles enjoy their own company. And it doesn't mean that you have to be alone or by yourself all the time. But when you are, grow, do something with that, or relax, just chill out, because when you're not alone, you're not going to have the time to enjoy just you time. Yes, there will be some times, but it's not going to be as often, and it's not going to be what you have the opportunity for now. Let's see. It says getting to the place of comfort involves being okay with who you are. So it all boils back to, and if you're not okay with who you are, maybe make a list of why you're not, and then start working on those things. Don't look at that list and feel sorry for yourself. Don't look at that list and say, this is too big. Take it one step at a time. Start working on one thing at a time. Like I said earlier, we're not in a race. This is a marathon. A marathon is long and takes time. I don't know if you've ever run a marathon, but when you run a marathon, you don't run full out as fast as you can the whole time, unless you're trying to win the thing. And then you're going to be in a whole different level than I've ever been. But as you train, you have to pace yourself. You have to purposely slow down at different points so that you don't overexert and so you don't run out of energy and so you don't injure yourself. And you're going to have a better time overall if you slow down at some point so that you still have that energy left. This isn't a sprint. A sprint is a short distance. You run as fast as you can and it's over. That's not what you want in life. That's not what you want in relationships. So it's okay to slow down and work on things one thing at a time. You're not going to run out of time. God still has plans for you, and maybe He knows you need to work through some of these things before you get into a relationship so that it's a healthier, happier, more peaceful relationship. And so if you can get okay with you, you're going to have a lot more to give to a relationship if that's the direction that you go. If you want to stay single the rest of your life and God has other plans for you that you need to not be tied down time-wise by a husband or kids or whatever, that's fine. Again, be comfortable with you and do what God has planned for you. Don't be afraid of what God has planned for you, even if it's different than what you thought your life would end up like. Started to skip to the end, but okay. And it says, are you worried about too many things? And it tells the story about Mary and Martha that we've all heard, or maybe you haven't heard, but Mary and Martha were sisters. They were friends of Jesus. And near the end, when Jesus was he knew, but no one else knew what was going on, he came over to their house for dinner and just to hang out with them and to spend time with them. And the story goes that Mary, being Mary and being Stacy and being Melissa and being Kimberly and being whoever, it was her house. She needed to make dinner. She needed to make sure everything was right. So she was busy taking care of the hospitality part of it. And then Martha's sitting in there. Jesus got there. Martha quit. She just goes and she sits and she talks to him and she listens and she just takes in everything she can take in from him. And Mary gets upset. She's like, seriously, I'm doing all this work, and she kind of wanted Jesus to get on to Martha. And she's like, I'm in here working. She's not helping me. She's just sitting there. If she'd help me, then we could both sit in there or whatever. And basically, Jesus just paraphrased, but what he said was, Martha, you're worried and troubled about many things. So he was really saying, I'm sorry that you're in such a tizzy over the matzo balls. Martha, you have some issues that you need to deal with. In fact, he was saying, Martha, you have a lot of things going on in your mind that are distracting you from the most important thing. Mary's chosen the most important thing. And that doesn't mean don't do the things you're responsible for. It doesn't mean, oh, you have a free pass. Don't do anything except sit at Jesus' feet. At some point, we have to get up and we have to do stuff, but we need that time with Jesus first. And that's what Martha was doing, was taking in Jesus when Mary was just worrying. Jesus was in her house, and she couldn't even stop and take it in because she had to clean things, and she had to cook, and she had to take care of everyone, and she was getting really mad about the fact that she was the only one doing it. I think we've all been there, We need to slow down. Yes, we need to be Mary. We need to take care of what we're responsible for, but we also need to be Martha, and I think we need to be Martha first. We need to spend that time with Jesus. We need to get that peace. We need to get that clarity, and then we can move on to the things that need to be done. So, the last thought is about the secret of meaningful singlehood and beyond. Let's see. So Mary had found, that she needed relationship with Jesus. It says she demonstrated her belief in this truth by sitting down when he was speaking. She didn't try to do two things at once. And I'm horrible about that. I know every morning driving to work, that's when I have a list of scriptures that I got. It's from a book, and they're called capsules. But basically, it's scriptures put in prayer form. I do that on my way to work every morning. I pray over my family. And like we talked about earlier, people that are like family to me are in this prayer every day. And, so I make sure I do that, but I do it while I'm driving. I don't stop and, before I get up first thing. I'm bad about, and I'll pray while I'm working out, or I'll double up. And that's one thing, we were challenged at the beginning of the year to pick like a word or a theme for what we're going to work on or whatever. And my word is slow. I need to slow down. I need to stop trying to do everything at once. I need to stop trying to do everything, basically. I need to either decide that it's not important and doesn't need to be done, or I need to ask for help. But I need to slow down. I need to slow down and recognize the people that are in front of me while they're in front of me. I need to stop. Like I told you last week, I'm very task-oriented. If I have something to do, I want to go do it. I need to slow down and realize that I've walked past 2 or 3 people. I need to slow down and see the looks on people's face because someone might need me. Someone might just need someone to say, hey, you look great today, or, how are you doing? And really mean it. Like, slow down and wait for a real response. But I need to slow down, and I've done it off and on. I'll tell you, I'm not slam dunking this one at all. I'm continuing to work on this. Fortunately, we're only part of the way through the year, so hopefully by the end of the year I'll get it. But I'm not going to give up when I realize that, I haven't slowed down and I need to. That's not the point to say, I can't do this. I just can't. This is the time to say, okay, recognize when I get to this point and don't do it again. I need to do a better job of slowing down and spending my focused time with God. I'm bad about working him into everything else that needs to be done, and I need to do better on that. So that's my thing that I'm working on. It says, Martha, on the other hand, probably would have liked to sit there, but she had the notion that somehow she was responsible for everything that went on. I think that just said the wrong word, because Mary's the one that was busy. Anyway, and her thought process was probably, well, what would people say? What would people think if I didn't get these things done? It doesn't matter. What matters is what Jesus thinks, what God thinks of you. It says, no, I got these totally different. I might have messed up this whole story. Anyway, it's Martha that was going crazy, and it's Mary that sat at Jesus' feet. So I may have been telling this whole thing backwards. But, again, we'll fix it. So, Martha was the one that, probably would have liked to have sat at Jesus' feet. But Mary, on the other hand, really didn't care. She just wanted to hear what Jesus had to say. And I think that's the thing. If we'll stop and listen to what Jesus has to say, we'll be able to know what really needs to be done. With me slowing down, if I'll stop and listen to God and I'll spend that time with God, then I'm going to know what matters in my day and what doesn't, because I'm going to have a totally different mindset, and I'm going to be focused on what God wants me to focus on. And she points out the scripture in Philippians 4:11. And it says, I've learned to be content in whatever circumstances I'm in. Contentment with the life that you've been given is a choice. It's your choice. And that's very important. You know, no matter what stage of life you're in, inevitably it all boils down to one truth. Your life is all about Christ and his work in it. Making the choice to sit at Jesus' feet in every circumstance of life is foundational. Key to just about everything that it means to be a big girl. If all of us, single, married, widowed, divorced, would grab a hold of this idea, then we'd be on our way to being big girls. It says there's a certain peace that comes when you realize that life is not all about you and what you can do. It's about who you are and what you can be as you. I love that. It's about who you are and what you can be as you. God created you to be you. So your true value is not about who you married or didn't marry. It's about how good you are at what you do. It's not about how good you are at what you do. It's really just about one thing. What is your relationship with God? Can you face each day with the confidence that you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you? And if you haven't been that, you can start that today. Basically, you just have to start telling yourself and reminding yourself it's not about me. This is about Christ. This is about what God's purpose for me is. And if you don't know that purpose, keep on praying, keep on trying until you figure out that purpose. A lot of times, whatever is in your heart that kind of jumps when someone mentions it, that's your purpose. And I guess I just want to wrap this up. I haven't looked at time. I probably should have done that. It's 7:45. I'm sorry I keep going so long. I just want to wrap this up with a challenge. If you are single, I want you to create habits that are non-negotiable once you get married. I want you to, and I don't mean in a stubborn way, I mean I want you to have such a habit of having time with God that you don't have to work it in later. That's one thing that I failed miserably at. I had a relationship with God, but I didn't do a great focused time with God consistently. And so then when I'm married and I decide, hey, I need this more than I thought I did, then I had to work it in. And I'm still, I still struggle with, I'm not great. I'm not one of these people that gets up early in the morning and sits on the back porch with coffee. And I wish I was, but I'm not there yet. I'm going to be there. I'm going to get there. And it's totally my fault. It's totally my choice that I'm not. And I hate that about me. But I feel like if I had set those standards for myself and I had decided early on this is non-negotiable, it would have been a lot easier once I was married and once I had kids, because now I find myself trying to fit God in as opposed to making him a priority. And that doesn't mean it has to be first thing in the morning. Whatever your scheduled time with him or the fact that you're going to have time with him, that's, whatever works for you. People are different. And my phone is falling and everything's going crooked. Okay, that's pretty much telling me it's time to go. So I love you guys. Again, if you have something you want to talk about or whatever, feel free to reach out to me. You can send me a message. I'm not going to put my phone number out here like Tommy does, but you can get to me. And if you need my phone number, I can get you my phone number. But I appreciate you. I love that you're going through this with me. And we're going to get through this. We're going to do things better, and we are going to grow. And that's the biggest thing. We're going to grow. So love you guys. Thanks for being with me, and I will see you next Monday. Hopefully Tommy will be back on Wednesday. They're still flooded in, but they're actually cutting a road through to get to them so they can get out to Wi-Fi somehow. So anyway, y'all have a great rest of the week, and I am praying for you guys. Bye.